Of all the plants in a vegetable garden, I think garlic is the one that should always be mulched and the one that probably benefits from mulch the most. Join me today as I discuss 10 reasons why you should mulch your garlic. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and I have garlic growing in this bed and I have garlic growing in that bed, and as you can see, both of these beds are fully mulched. My garlic stays mulched from the time I plant it until I harvest it. It's a bit unique in our vegetable garden because it's about the only plant that we put in the ground in autumn, allow to stay in the ground all winter long, and then we're not harvesting it until summer. And so for those 9 months, even though it's very easy and it just stays in place, we still need to make sure that we're growing the strongest plant that we can. And that's where the mulch comes in. Now, the first reason why it's important to mulch is because the mulch helps maintain a consistent soil moisture level. As soon as we put the cloves in the ground in autumn, they'll start growing roots if the soil is moist. And typically in autumn, when the rest of the garden is fading, we're not watering as often as we used to. Well, when we do water, the mulch helps make sure that the soil evaporation is reduced and that those cloves can start growing those roots. And then in the spring, after cold weather, the days start warming up, well, the soil needs to stay moist for those roots to continue to grow after they break dormancy and for the sprouts to come up. Again, in early spring, we're not always thinking about watering. There's less evaporation on cooler days, but the mulch in place helps make sure that the soil stays consistently moist after we do water it. Another important reason for the mulch is that it also moderates soil temperature. And so as the nights become colder in autumn and as the days become warmer in spring, you can have a cycle that starts to develop. It's called a freeze-thaw cycle, where at night the cold temperatures cause the soil to freeze and the warm temperatures of day cause the soil to thaw. Well, that freeze-thaw cycle can cause something called frost heave, where the soil gets cold and then starts expanding. And as it expands, well, it can heave out the cloves that we've planted. A mulch in place acts as a blanket. It helps moderate the temperature to cut down on that possibility of a freeze-thaw cycle developing into frost heave. So, for that reason alone, a mulch in place is great, just so we know that the cloves don't get pushed out of the ground and that they can continue to grow. You want the biggest garlic bulbs possible, and one way to achieve that is to have a nice, loose soil. Now, part of that comes with the way you prepare your soil before you plant it. But another way to keep your soil loose is with mulch. Now, mulch helps reduce compaction in your soil. It's kind of like a pillow top mattress. So when you water, when the rain falls, when it snows, this mulch is going to help dissipate that pressure of the water or the snow, and it's less likely to compact the soil underneath. So I like to use about 3 inches of mulch to start with, and over time that mulch will gradually compact as it breaks down and as it's exposed to those weather elements. Well, the mulch is compacting and the soil underneath really isn't compacting as much, which makes a big difference for the size of the bulbs you get. It also helps reduce erosion. So if you're in an area that gets a lot of rain, you could run into the problem of the soil washing away, or at least washing to the side and possibly exposing those cloves. Well, you want the cloves to stay covered with soil during the entire time. So put mulch in place so you don't run into that possibility. Throughout the garden, mulch is a great way to reduce soil erosion. And when you've got cloves in place that you want to keep covered, No, mulch is the answer. The mulch also helps to protect the tender young sprouts. It's not unusual if you start your garlic too early in the autumn for the sprouts to actually break ground and begin growing. And then as you approach winter, those sprouts can be exposed to some pretty cold conditions. Now, it's a very hardy plant that can hold up to ice and snow, but the mulch acts like insulation to help keep the temperature around those young sprouts a little bit warmer than if the mulch weren't there and they were exposed to all of the weather elements. So both in autumn when the sprouts first pop up and in spring when the sprouts first pop up, mulch really helps give them a couple degrees that really can make a difference to whether they're going to survive or not. And another great reason for mulch, and this holds true throughout the entire garden, which is why I really advocate using mulch, is that it helps reduce weeds. The garlic is a relatively shallow plant, and so it doesn't do well when it has a lot of competition with other plants nearby, other plants like weeds. Well, a mulch that's in place really helps keep a lot of the seeds from germinating. And when they do pop up, it's really easy to see and they're really easy to pluck out. So all you have growing in your bed is your garlic without that competition. And then the mulch is in place to make sure that it stays that way until you get to harvest time. A healthy soil full of life is critical for all garden plants. And because garlic is in place for about 9 months, there really isn't a lot we can do to benefit that soil life. All of those organisms that work with plants to give them the best success. Well, here's where mulch comes back into play again. When we use a light mulch like straw and crushed leaves and dried grass clippings, well, it adds organic matter to the top of the soil. And so those microorganisms and even the earthworms and beetles can begin decomposing the mulch and adding that organic matter back to the soil. That helps improve the soil on so many levels. And one of the ways it does that is by adding nutrients to the soil. And so again, because the garlic is in place for such a long amount of time, any way we can add nutrients can be important. Now, you can use fertilizers, but fertilizers can actually disrupt that soil life. So one of the best ways to get the nutrients into the soil is with the decomposing organic mulch that we're using on the surface. So those couple reasons to help improve the soil really can be a reason why to keep the mulch in place while the garlic is growing. All of these reasons so far directly impact how the garlic grows in a bed. This next reason really has a bigger purpose because it impacts the garden at large. The mulch, for all those previous reasons, will help promote soil life. It encourages all of those soil organisms. And the garlic may be growing in these beds for this season, but we'll be growing other plants in these beds after that. And so if you can always be working towards developing a healthy soil, a better soil, then all of the plants to follow will be better. And mulch is one of the best ways to promote that soil life. Also, this gives you the opportunity to recycle some of what you have in your landscape. If you use your own leaves, if you use your own grass clippings, if you use your own rough compost as a mulch, it allows you to use what you already have, not only saving money, but helping to ensure that you get to choose what mulch you're putting on your plants. Now, I'll purchase straw because I like straw, but I always mix it with those leaves and grass clippings and whatever compost I can make. A bonus reason why you should mulch is purely subjective. It has nothing to do with how the plants grow or how the soil is improved. Instead, it's all about the gardener. And this gardener likes the way that a nicely mulched bed looks. It's pleasing to the eye. When I have a nice, neat and tidy bed, I think it just really adds something when I walk through the garden. And once the garlic starts growing and you have just the plants with the mulch at its base, well, it's something that I think makes the whole garden appear nicer to anybody that wants to walk through it. There you have 10 reasons and a bonus of why you should use mulch around your garlic. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.